Hello, everybody. We are ready to start this hopefully exciting webinar. And first of all, we want to say thank you to Ray and NewMR to give us this opportunity to share with you this presentation. And also thank you to you, so much to you and everybody that is listening right now. Please, if you have any questions during this presentation, we will have a space for a Q&A at the end of the webinar. Well, let's start with the introduction. Julia Jenks is on my side. She's the Vice President, Worldwide Research and Analysis at Motion Picture Association. And myself, Ben Boix, that I'm responsible for Netquest, US and Canada. Let's start with a brief introduction about Netquest. Netquest was founded in Spain in 2001 and initially was born as a software company. We provided survey tools to our clients, but soon we realized that this was not the business that our clients wanted the most, and we started creating our own panels. We started with our first panel in Spain and quickly moved to other countries, and we add proprietary panels in the main countries of Latin America, Europe, and in the United States. 6 years ago, we acquired an online testing tracking software that helped us to become the leading provider of digital behavior and opinion data in the market research sector. But I know that I just said that we are a panel company, but sincerely, I do not like this definition at all, because we are not just another panel company. Is it true that we have our proprietary panels that provide opinion? We know exactly who is who because we have our panelists deeply profiled. Actually, we have more than 1,500 panelist attributes available per country. But we are able to do more than that. We are able to locate where our panelists are at any given time, thanks to our geolocation data, and what they are listening to using our audio matching technology. But today, we really wanted to talk about the last point, behavioral data. We're able to know and to collect what our panelists are doing on their browsers, smartphones, and tablets. But the main key here is that we're able to mix everything in order to provide a data combination to help with the best accuracy in your studies. That is what we call symphony of data. Well, let's dive into behavioral data. Online behavioral data or research is the method of collecting data about people's online habits and behaviors. We have a community of panelists that share their online navigation in exchange for points that they can redeem for gifts. This group of track panelists is what we call our premium panel or behavioral panel. Specifically, they install a meter on their devices and start sharing their data via multiple platforms: desktop, smartphone, and tablet. One thing that is really important about our behavioral panel is that it's representative on the online population in each country. Okay, my colleague, Julia, will follow from here, explaining how to measure the online impact using behavioral data.
Hi, thank you, Ben, for the introduction. Again, my name is Julia Jenks, and I head up research at the MPA. First, a little background about our organization. We're a global trade organization representing the film, television, and streaming industry. Our members are the major US studios. Our research includes sizing the impact of the industry as well as understanding the trends in how consumers are finding and consuming film and series content. Have you ever tried to reach a website, but it was unavailable? What did you do next? Did you give up and do something else? Or did it cause you to look for an alternative approach to what you were trying to do? We're interested to understand how consumers' behavior changes in these specific instances. Put more simply, our research question is, how did the unavailability of a website impact consumer behavior on other sites of interest? Consumer behavior online is driven by habit. People tend to go where they've gone before, so the sites not being available suddenly is a shock, a moment where we can learn something about behavior. The challenge in measuring how an unavailable site affected consumer behavior on other sites is how do we isolate the change that was causal or caused by this? The reality is there are a lot of related trends and a lot of noise around consumers' use of websites. For example, if people like to travel, they'll be using a lot of different sites that relate to travel, and those trends are correlated. Or if people like movies, they may be using a lot of different kinds of sites that relate to movies, including user-generated content sites, movie rental sites, piracy sites, and other sites. Consumers' use of sites is also affected by seasonal trends, movie releases, current events like COVID-related closures, holidays, and more. The goal is to establish a methodology that would measure the change in the consumer's behavior that came as a result of the unavailable site, as opposed to all of these other factors. The methodology we use to do this is called a natural experiment. The goal is to find something that occurs naturally that simulates the same type of experience as a randomized control trial. That is, the event causes some individuals to be treated by this experiment and others are not treated, giving us a treatment group and a control group. It's important that the control group is a good control in the pre-period, that is the period that occurs prior to the event, that their trends were mirroring the treatment group on our sites of interest. Then we can use a difference in difference approach to isolate the causal effects, assessing the changes in the post period. Here's an example of how this can look from the academic literature. There was a paper that looked at the impact of a new anti-piracy law in France on iTunes sales. In this case, they don't have individual level behavioral data as been described, but they're able to use iTunes sales for a control group of countries that were trending similarly to France in the pre-period, which is towards the left of the graph, and how at the point of consumer awareness of the new law in France, there is a change in the trend for France as compared to the control group of countries. For our site-based study, where we're looking at websites, other countries won't serve as a good control. What we can use in this case, given this panel data, is anonymized individual level online behavioral data. This data is granular enough for us to be able to see who used the site in the pre-period, or therefore were treated by this unavailability. And this we would call the treatment group. The rest of the users who weren't using this site become the control group. Then we can observe their behavior both before and after the sites become unavailable. It's important to us that we're following the same group of users throughout the pre and post period. So we focus on continuous users, people who were in the panel for the whole period. Then we can segment them in terms of their use of the sites of interest. We can learn things like what proportion did they represent of our sample, and what proportion are in the control group because they didn't use the site. We can also learn about how the treatment group relied upon the sites of the closed sites in the pre-period. Obviously, the control group's reliance is zero. They weren't using the sites at all. For our model, we group sites into different categories. So the first group are the domains that were part of the site that became unavailable. But other groups we can look at are related sites of interest. In the travel example, the site that became unavailable could be an airline's website. Then the other categories would be related sites, such as competitor sites or other types of travel sites. Once we have the data cleaned and grouped for treatment and control and site groupings, then we can look at the difference over time in the treatment and control before and after the event, the unavailability of the site. We use balanced pre and post periods before and after the event. And we can use an econometric model with a key measure, which is treatment intensity. How heavily were the users using those sites? That captures their level of engagement. And that allows us to measure causal results of the events on the sites of interest. The changes in the post period that were not experienced by the control group are isolated as causal change. So just to summarize, the availability of anonymized individual level behavioral data online is very exciting because it allows us to segment individuals into treatment and control groups around a specific event. And this can allow us to measure causal change in behavior from those events. For example, events related to changes in availability of specific sites on other types of sites. This may have other applications. You may be able to think of natural experiments in your own industry that would be appropriate for similar studies.
Julia and Ben, thank you so much for the presentation. Let's go to the Q&A.